But the bigger point is we're not used to seeing this. No. We're not used to seeing a Gamecock team go into a season where people have their starting quarterback as a legit Heisman Trophy candidate. Can you think of anything close to that?
No.
At the quarterback spot, not George Rogers, not Sterling Sharp, at the quarterback spot.
No, I mean, obviously the closest was the last guy, Spencer Rattler, he would occasionally come up in a conversation, maybe. But that's the closest that I can possibly remember. I mean, Connor was never in it. Steven was never in it.
I mean, and even Spencer, as good as he was, never got first team, second team, third team All SEC.
No.
You've got people predicting LaNorris is going to do that in another year of really good quarterback play in this league.
Right.
I mean, from Garrett Nussmeier, Garrett Nussmeier, to Arch, to I thought Nico's stock dropped. You can vote. You can put your money on him to win the Heisman too. He's on that board, but I mean, if anything, I thought Nico dipped. I thought the hype and him dipped.
You know, we talked about him last week. He is one of the more fascinating case studies to me personally for next season because I would like to think, and because I agree with you, everything you just said, no question about that. The other side is we know exactly how talented he is, and he's going to be starting for his second year in a Josh Heupel system.
Mm-hmm.
And you would like to think like he's going to be slept on and then bam, all of a sudden, well, that's the guy we thought we'd probably see last year. Maybe the game slows down. I don't know all of that to be true. I'm just trying to take all the things that we knew and know about him and about his coach and the offense that they play in and the talent that surrounds him, et cetera, et cetera. And you would like to think that like there's no way that this is going to end up, quote unquote, being like a bust, right? I don't know all that. I'm just thinking through this here going, there's no, if he doesn't like really play well next year, the answer to the question of why will be a fascinating answer.
Yeah, he wasn't great. I mean, their strength was their ground game.
Right.
That was and if we're going to be honest, Carolina's strength last year was that defense. That defense was top 10 national good. And it would be hard for me to expect it to be that good next year. It's really hard to replace a lot. I think JC was talking the other day about how many guys are going to be drafted. Like it might be a new Carolina record.
Could be.
And most of those are coming from what side of the football?
Yeah, the defense. Yep.
Right. So, I mean, so I'm like Dylan Stewart, he's going to be a dude. And he's only going to be stronger, more explosive. And there are some good players returning, but you lost a lot. So now all of a sudden,
middle of the defense too, Mike.
Yeah, exactly. Just like baseball, right? It starts up the middle.
Yeah.
So I mean, it would be realistic to expect the defense, even if it's really good, to not be quite as dominating as what we just saw. That is a once in a generation quality defense that we just saw on the field for Carolina. So that means that puts a little more pressure on the offense, right? Mm-hmm. And then to your point, no one's going to not see LaNorris Sellers coming. He's on everybody's watch list, everybody's Heisman list, everybody's all-world list. So, okay, you're on the top of the scouting report. As I've mentioned, I want to see him have a little more help at the receiver position.
Yeah.
And this is a little outdated. I know there might be another wideout that's committed, but you mentioned on 3. This was, I think, last week. It had the top 10 portal players. And I'll just tell you the wide receivers. Eric Singleton, who I know for a fact Ole Miss really wanted. He picked Auburn. Zachariah Branch, leaving Southern Cal for Georgia. Casey Concepcion.
Yeah, from NC State.
He chose the Aggies.
Mm-hmm.
And Micah Hudson from Texas Tech chose the Aggies. Those are the top wide receivers in the portal. I might be missing a guy that recently signed. Forgive me if I have. But it would have been nice to see the Gamecocks be able to grab, at least one guy of that caliber. Now, I know they've got great freshmen coming in, but I just want to see I want to see LaNorris have the same weaponry around him as some of these other Nussmeier's going to have dudes on the outside of LSU because they always have them, always, right? And all of a sudden now Texas A&M. I mean, they're getting legit first round picks on the outside, and like I mentioned, Georgia got into it in the portal, and Auburn got Singleton. Who's Carolina's go-to guy? I asked that question before last season, and everybody kind of just struggled to come up with a name.
Yeah, there wasn't an answer. Everybody had a different name.
There wasn't.
Everybody's answer was different.
Right, because there was no true go-to guy.
No, and to your point too, like, okay, so I just saw it here in the chat box. I 100% agree with this. It feels very much like the conversation we had last year is going to be flipped. So going into the season, one of the main talking points that I know I had it, but collectively around here, our programming and a lot of people give credit to everybody. Defense going to have to carry this group until they can learn how to score some points, and that really is kind of what happened. And then the offense kicked in into gear. It's going to be different this year. I believe. I don't think the defense is going to be bad. I'm not saying that, but it seems like the offense probably is going to need to be clicking a little bit more than they were at the beginning of last year early on if South Carolina wants to get off to the start that they're capable of doing, especially with the schedule. But the LaNorris, so Coach Beamer made this point last week with us. It is a wonderful point. Last year, LaNorris Sellers didn't even have three of his top wide receivers in spring practice. Campbell wasn't there. Nick Harbor wasn't there, et cetera. Now Harbor's forgoing track.
Huge.
Which is a big deal. I could argue that there wasn't anybody that developed more so than he developed as the season went along. And we know what he's capable of from an athleticism. He was making more wide receiver plays, if you will. His body moved like a wide receiver. He wasn't as stiff as he was before and kind of wondering where to go.
Right.
It seemed like the light was on. So now that you have this entire offseason, your starting quarterback returns, who's already thrown the football at all these guys, and they're going to be together through spring practice. The expectations are high for the young guys. All five of those dudes, I get it, but you can't rely on them. Maybe you end up relying on one or two of those guys. Who knows? But like as it stands today, those aren't going to be the guys you're going to be like, boy, this season, it hinges on that kid from Irmo. I'll tell you what, no, it's just not. It's going to be Nick Harbor. It's going to be Jared Brown. It's going to be Vandrevius Jacobs. It's going to be Mazio Bennett. All the guys that he was throwing to last year. And Mike Furry continuing to develop those guys, and they develop that camaraderie with their quarterback. So I'm not trying to get too deep in the weeds with a lot of like X's and O's crazy football talk. That's not what I'm getting at here. What I am getting at is that there is still another portal period coming, and Carolina is searching. And if they find one that they like, they will sign him. But if not, then this receiving core will hinge on development, kind of like the old days, like, well, let's bring them along. We got our quarterback here. And did we see enough from those guys last year to think that they can be a difference-making group in the upcoming season? I tend to think yes.
Yeah.
But you don't know that.
Well, and to your point, whether it's a Leggett or some of the other guys going back even to Spurrier that turned out to be really great weapons. They weren't all 5-star kids that were just, measurables off the charts and immediately they developed into really good college football players. So that can happen. I'm not saying it can't. What I am saying is the script has changed to where, yeah, you can do it that way, but it'd be nice to also pluck some established guy right off the top, which is what everybody's trying to do, and some are more successful than others. And you only have so much money you can spread around. It'd be nice to bring in a guy who already was like 1,000-yard receiver at some other program and be like, yep, we just got him, and there's your go-to. That is the guy. That would be a luxury that I'd love to see. Might not be in the cards this year, but look, I think Nick Harbor clearly made steps and now he's 100% focused on football. That's a major plus. And all the other guys you mentioned, like they all made plays at certain junctures. They all are solid receivers that should only get better. I just don't know if you have a dude yet.
Yeah.
Right? Like just a
Yeah.
guy that's like where a defensive coordinator leading up to the Saturday against the Gamecocks are like, this guy is a problem. And we have to shade a safety over and we have to bracket because we do not want to let him beat us. I don't know if that guy is on the roster just yet. Maybe it turns into B. Harbor. I don't know.
I don't know. I'm with you. And that's not degrading the group at all. I think that it's very, in certain ways, and I hope this is taken the right way, the way that I say it here. It's kind of in certain ways similar to what Tom Brady did in New England. Totally different level. I'm not comparing LaNorris Sellers to Tom Brady. That's not what I'm doing. I'm just talking about this. Hey, look, we're going to put good players around you, but you can make them great. And maybe a little bit of what's going on in Buffalo this year. They've got talented guys out there, but they had Josh Allen at quarterback.
Exactly.
And, you know what I mean? Like, so, and I do think that South Carolina has some guys who are capable of being superstars at that position. I know they've recruited exceptionally well there. I know
you get a Gronkowski at tight end.
You know, is that Brady Hunt? I don't know. Michael Smith's a problem. I know that. But yeah, so you know, it all remains to be seen. But the key with all of this is they're not going to be breaking in a new quarterback next year. They've got LaNorris Sellers coming back, and that's what, like, if you're going to be able to take that, you know, if you take solace in something, that's it. There, like, you've got a quarterback. Bring these guys to his level. I think they can do it.
And when you take a look at all these rankings that are already out and are going to be coming out, let's just keep it in conference for a second. The programs that have the proven commodity at quarterback, that's who everybody's going to love.
Sure.
That's who everybody's – I mean, even Vanderbilt with Diego Pavia is going to get a little bit of love. They might not be projected to be 16th for once. But the top programs, with a couple of exceptions, of course, that are uber talented everywhere else.
Who will be? Mississippi State, I guess? I don't know.
Probably, yeah. I think they're going to be projected last. I mean, Lebby inherited a mess. That's not his fault, but
no.
Yeah, and those fans are smart enough to realize, like, they're going to have to be patient, and firing him and hiring like a fourth coach in 6 years, that's not going to go over well. But yeah, I think they'd be at the bottom. But at the top, it's going to be a lot of proven commodities at quarterback.
It's somebody this year. All right, the rankings are up. You got to be kidding me. We're picked below Vanderbilt.
Yeah,
it's coming from somewhere.
It's
My
gonna
gut's to
happen.
Magnolia State.
It's gonna because Clark Lee, he knows how to get the most out of that group. They're never going to be high in the recruiting rankings. They're never going to lead the way in the portal. But he's got Pavia, and he's got just enough to be a headache for some teams.
Mm-hmm.
You know, now what you saw in the second half is I thought they got grinded down. That's one of the reasons why I loved Carolina in that game, like, convincingly. I just didn't think the time to have been nervous about Vanderbilt was September, October.
Right.
It wasn't November. November, they started that lack of depth, lack of size. It started to really be a bigger factor.